Hey there, all you beautiful souls. I hope your day has been absolutely fantastic. It's a pleasure to have you back for yet another exciting episode of What If Naruto Was the Descendant of Scorpion. Don't forget to pay a visit to the author of this captivating fanfiction and show them some love. You'll find the link waiting for you down in the description. If this what if is sparking your curiosity, drop a comment down below and share your thoughts. And while you're at it, don't miss out on exploring the plethora of other intriguing what ifs available on this very channel. Alright, let's not keep you waiting any longer, let's dive right into this thought-provoking video. Konohagakure no Seido Hokage Monument. Uzumaki Naruto. I need to know what she means to you. Naruto let out a small sigh as he stared at the village before him. I know you feel like you're going to hurt me by telling me, but it's obvious that she loves you and I know you're hurting from turning her away. Just talk to me, Naruto-kun, Haku said to him. Is it that obvious? Naruto asked her. Haku chuckled and placed her head against his right shoulder and replied, yes you idiot. I wouldn't be so worried if you didn't look like someone stabbed your kitten. Naruto chuckled and shut his eyes. Alright, I'll tell you. So it all started when I was going to train my Chujin, Takahashi Takeda. Flashback Shirai Ryu Fire Garden. Hasashi Hanzo. The night was cool and crisp as Hanzo stood in the courtyard of the fire garden. The gentle breeze causing the beautiful red leaves to drift to the ground slowly. Behind him were 2 rows of Shirai Ryu members, separated by a cobblestone aisle where his apprentice knelt. Takeda. You understand why you are here? Hanzo asked as he looked down at his prized apprentice. Takeda wore the standard Shirai Ryu attire, black shinobi pants, with a yellow sash around his forehead to keep his shaggy hair at bay, along with a yellow sash around his chest, but he also wore a blue shirt underneath the sash and white wrappings around his hands and forearms. I do not, Hasashi-sensei, Takeda replied with a bowed head. Hanzo was quiet for a moment before he said, on that fateful day, I made Quan Kai pay his debt to the Shirai Ryu. I attacked the special forces, and made them watch as I beat that sniveling worm into the ground, and before I took his head. Hanzo then turned his head to stare at the decapitated head of Quan Kai, which swung in the breeze. But there's where I made my mistake. I killed him with no remorse just as he finished the spell to free Shinnok from the amulet, and because of that, I alone put Earthrealm in danger. Takeda looked up with confusion and murmured, Hasashi-sensei. But you, Takahashi Takeda. You and your comrades saved Earthrealm, and that is debt that I can never repay, Hanzo continued as a warm smile appeared on his face. So from the bottom of my heart, I say thank you, Takahashi Takeda. You have brought honor and pride to the Shirai Ryu. Thank you, Chujin Takahashi. The Shirai Ryu members chorused in unison. Anything to bring pride to our clan, Hasashi-sensei, Takeda responded with a humble tone. Dismiss. Hanzo exclaimed, and with a burst of fire, the shinobi vanished, leaving Hanzo and Takeda alone. Hanzo smiled and motioned for Takeda to stand, and said, you certainly have brought pride to us all, Takeda. With how much growth you've shown throughout the years, when my time comes, I can see myself handing over the Shirai Ryu over to you. Takeda's eyes bugged out in alarm as he exclaimed, Hasashi-sensei. You can't be serious. Am I known to joke? Hanzo asked with a straight face, but there was a hint of a smirk on his face. Takeda shook his head, but his face took on a humble expression. Sensei. I don't know what to say. I would be honored to lead the Shirai Ryu to further greatness. However, I don't think you're that old yet. Hanzo laughed and placed a hand on Takeda's shoulder and said, well, that is true, the life of a grandmaster is very stressful. It may age my soul before my body. Takeda laughed as well and said, well, if you husk up before your time, I will take over then. The pair began to walk down the aisle with their hands behind their backs, as Hanzo asked, how has training with the special forces been for you? It's been good. Really good, Takeda said, his face taking on a faint pink tone, and Hanzo instantly chuckled. Hanzo knew that Takeda had recently caught the eye of Jacqueline Briggs, the daughter of his former Ravenian teammate, Major Jackson Briggs, and he could see why. From the brief interaction, she was headstrong, similar to his student and the rest of his team, skilled as a fighter, deadly with her special forces equipment, and held a confidence matched only by her superiors, while also holding a gentle beauty to her. It was obvious that his student would fall for her. Like father like son, after all. Good. Just be mindful. I do not want your skills to wane while you court the young Briggs, Hanzo said, which caused Takeda's blush to deepen, and his normally talkative mouth to gape in surprise. Hanzo treasured the times he was able to silence his student. As the pair turned a corner, Hanzo caught a portal opening in the distance. No. Both Hanzo and Takeda said in unison before they ran towards the portal. Just as they reached it, the pair skidded to a stop as a figure fell from out of it and landed at their feet. Moments later, the portal closed. Hasashi-sensei. This is, Takeda said, but Hanzo tuned him out. Before them was the queen of the NarutoxHarem, Katana Kanem. NGH. Katana groaned and slowly rose to her feet, her orange eyes glowing in the dark as she shook her head. Where am I? She murmured out. She then looked up at him and his apprentice, and quickly pulled out her fans in alarm. Both Takeda and Hanzo pulled their blades from their backs, and held them before them as Hanzo yelled, "What are you doing here, Adenian? The portal took me here. Of all places." Katana murmured to herself with narrowed eyes. "What do you mean?" Takeda asked. "I sought to escape the NarutoxHarem. This portal appeared and I went through it. Had I known it would lead me here, I would have found it different means," Katana replied before her eyes narrowed in fury at Takeda. "Especially at the sight of you," she hissed out angrily. "Hey," Takeda said with an offended tone. "It's not my fault, Jackie, and I kicked the majority of your asses across the NarutoxHarem." "Takeda," Hanzo warned. Takeda nodded and became serious. "Why would you want to escape the NarutoxHarem?" Hanzo asked. "Last I saw of you, all of adored your status there." Katana's stance lessened, and it was then Hanzo noticed something in her eyes. "Regret. I will not deny you that fact. We did revel in it. Never hesitated either, but things changed," Katana murmured. "I saw a vision that showed me what I could have been. What I could be. After that, I couldn't stay in that hellish world." Hanzo sheathed his blade, and without taking his eyes off of her, he asked, "What exactly is your goal, Katana?" "To be better than what I am now. To rid myself of this revenant's curse. To feel like me again," Katana replied softly. Hanzo stared at her for what seemed like an eternity to him, before he turned his head slightly to Takeda. "Takeda, summon the other Shirai Ryu, and scan for any portals in the area," Hanzo commanded. Takeda nodded and vanished in a swirl of flames, leaving Hanzo alone with the queen. In the old days, Hanzo would have wasted no time in slaying her. But for every rash action he did, the outcome of it was worse. He had the chance to bring back his family, but killing by hand cost him that chance. He attacked Kuai Liang and nearly cost himself the chance to find out about Quan Kai's deception. He took the chance to kill Quan Kai and Shinnok was released, which nearly ended the world. But the other thing that stopped him was something he wasn't expecting. He empathized with her. She was trapped in a hellish form for what seemed like an eternity, unable to break free from those chains. The same way he was. And despite the fact that he was saved from his revenant form, he was still a lost soul, filled with bitterness and hatred. Until a kind soul showed him the way. But could he do it? Could he be the light that Kenshi had been during his lost days? "I want to believe you," Hanzo told her, which caused Katana's eyes to widen in surprise. "And I want to help you, but as a former revenant, I know how dark and twisted our desires can be. Show me your resolve." "My resolve?" Katana asked as she gripped her fan handles. "What is that supposed to mean?" "You wish to change, yes? Then show me," Hanzo said. Takeda appeared in a flourish of flames and said, "No other portals, sensei. Everything is safe here and around Earthrealm." "Good. Tell me, Takeda, is the Taki no Shokin, Waterfall of Redemption, available?" Hanzo questioned. His student nodded, which made Hanzo nod as well. "Good. Katana. Follow me, please." "Sensei, you serious?" Takeda exclaimed. "Am I known to joke?" Hanzo asked with a firm look on his face. Takeda shook his head and said, "But she tried take over the realms with Shinnok and Quan Kai. Tried to kill Jakui, Takeda and I. Are you sure this is the right call?" "Takeda," Hanzo said firmly. Takeda's eyes widened before he bowed and said, "I forgot my place, sensei. I apologize. I understand your concerns, but trust me. Have I ever led you astray before?" Hanzo asked. Takeda shook his head. "Then trust me," Hanzo said. "It's her I don't trust," Takeda said as he spared a glance at the narrowed-eyed Katana. Feeling was mutual, it seemed. "But I will trust in your judgment, sensei," Takeda said as he bowed. "That's all I ask," Hanzo said with a smile before he placed a hand on top of Takeda's head briefly before removing it and motioning for Katana to follow him. "This is your first test," Hanzo said as he glanced at the lake before him, that had a huge gushing waterfall coming from the mountain before them. The water itself seemed to glow with an untold power, and if one looked carefully, faint particles of ethereal blue energy were floating from the clear water and into the air, where it faded away. Behind him, Katana's eyes were locked on the fairly large body of water. "This is the Taki no Shokin," Hanzo told her. When a Shirai member comes back from a mission, we soak ourselves within the lake and beneath the rushing waters to purify our souls. It is one of the few ways we fight to keep the darkness from our actions from taking root. Taki no Shokin, Katana repeated softly. When Quan Kai arrived, he purposely tried to destroy the waterfall, but when he failed, he sealed it. When I was reborn as a human, Kenshi and I discovered the seal on it, and requested for Raiden to unseal it and strengthen his power. This was the first step in my rehabilitation. You are a human. I am still a revenant. It won't be able to cure me of that, Katana said, her voice struggling to keep the venom out of it. You are correct. One use will not be able to cleanse your corrupt soul, but eventually, it will purify you from your corrupted form, Hanzo explained. How do you know this? Katana asked. Kung Lao, Hanzo replied. Kung Lao? Katana exclaimed. Hanzo nodded. After Cassandra Cage's victory over Shinnok, Kung Lao's nephew brought the corrupted Kung Lao to us, wishing to be cured of his affliction. With help from the enhanced properties of this waterfall and his own Shaolin teachings, we were able to heal his compromised soul. Katana's eyes softened at this as she gazed back at the waterfall. Then what must I do? She asked. Disrobe yourself and sit beneath the waterfall and meditate, Hanzo replied. Disrobe? You mean for me to be naked beneath the waterfall? Katana asked, her voice slightly aghast. Not beneath the waterfall. You are far from ready for that, Hanzo instantly replied. You will only need to walk into the river until it reaches your waist. Besides, the waterfall is the most secluded area within our Shirai base. You will not be disturbed. This is all I must do. Traverse until my waist is beneath the water. Katana questioned with a raised eyebrow. Hanzo then turned around to face the queen and said, that is correct. However, it is not as easy as it sounds. This will be the ultimate test of your determination. At Katana's confused expression, Hanzo continued with the healing properties of this water are meant to purify. Each time you enter, there is an intense burning that you will feel all around you. That is the water healing the corrupt nature from your body. The more darkness you hold, the intense the pain. I do not doubt that you will lose consciousness from the pain. So I ask you, how determined are you to reclaim what you lost? More determined than Liu Kang's hatred of Raiden, Katana replied. Hanzo and Katana stared at each other for what seemed like forever before Hanzo nodded, then turned to the waterfall, and began to slide out from his robe as he replied, then let's begin. What are you doing? Katana asked Hanzo, her head turned away as Hanzo stood bare before her. As someone who doesn't trust easily, I know that all that I've said may worry you, or make you may feel suspicious. So as a sign of faith, I will go in before you so you can what will occur, Hanzo replied before slowly making his way towards the water. The second his foot touched the water, cracks of ethereal green light began to race up his body. He let out a hiss as his brown eyes changing to a pale green, as steam began to flow from the cracks on his body. Hanzo continued to walk through the water until his waist was beneath the water, his breathing slightly shallow from the pain he felt. Because I willingly gave my body to become Scorpion, a part of my soul was be corrupted, it never goes away. Yours has a chance to. So do not fight it, otherwise you will fall. Very well, Katana said after a second of silence before she began to remove her clothing as well, until she was naked as the day she was born. Slowly, she walked into the water and immediately, Hanzo could see her want to let out a scream as the orange, hellish cracks of the Revenant was taken over by the healing ethereal green light. Despite this, he remained. He watched as Katana balled her hands and continued to walk through the water, each step causing more steam to flow from her body. Through the steam screen around the queen, he saw that her glowing eyes had dimmed, signifying that she was close to losing consciousness, but they brightened up again, and she continued to make her way to him. Through the ever-thickening screen of steam, he could see Katana's silhouette stumble forward as her breathing started to become ragged. The glow of her eyes began to dull, but once again, a flare of life shined through her eyes. Katana kept going until she stood before him, the steam flowing around the pair as he stared at her shut eyes. You did it, Hanzo told her. I did. Katana confirmed weakly. Already, Hanzo noticed there was a change to her skin. What was in dark slate gray was now slightly lighter, and her voice wasn't as rough as it was before. He saw the katana was about to fall forward and immediately knelt down and hooked an arm beneath her knee and lifted her out of the water. Just rest, Hanzo told Katana, who looked somewhat alarmed by the sudden action before she nodded and drifted off into a well-earned slumber. The intense glow of the ethereal green energy that stretched against Katana's skin became dull as Hanzo walked out of the water, and once he was out, he transported them away from the river, and into a large orange-colored room, where a single bed sat against the left side wall. He placed her on the bed and placed the covers over her naked body and walked towards the door when he heard a faint whir. You passed my test. I will assist you in ridding yourself of your revenant's curse, Hanzo said. Rest, for we will train tomorrow. Why? She faintly asked. Because I understand, Hanzo replied before he turned around and began to walk away. Training begins tomorrow at sunrise. Takeda will be here to wake you up for it. Do not be late. Thank you. Katana whispered before she drifted off to sleep once again, allowing Hanzo to leave the room. Then once he closed the door, he looked back and said, Rest well, Katana. Konohagakure no Seido Hokage Monument. Uzumaki Naruto. So just like that, you took her in? Haku asked. She experienced what I had. Even if it was someone else, if they wanted to change then I would save them, Naruto replied. Plus, there was another reason. Haku tilted her head curiously. Katana was a powerful warrior. More than she could ever realize. When we first met at the tournament, I could see it, but she was held back by her waning loyalty to her monster of a father. Then when she became a revenant, she was held back by her bitterness and hate. The same way I was, Naruto admitted softly. What happened next? Haku asked as she looked at him. Well, the next year belonged to us getting familiar with one another, as well as peeling back the bitterness and hatred she held for Raiden, as well as Takeda and a few others. No, you silly, Haku said. Fast forward. When did you two begin to fall in love? Naruto snorted and said, It happened slowly and over time, my love. However, for you, I will go to the day that started our feelings for one another. Flashback Shirai Ryu Fire Garden. Hasashi Hanzo. Hanzo stood on the front porch of his home, his eyes gazing down at the homes belonging to his fellow clansmen in thought. He had just received a letter from Kuai Liang that he wished to sign an official accord between them to end the decades-long blood feud between their clans. It was strange that he and his longtime enemy-turned-ally, Kuai Liang, had gotten to this point in their lives. An official accord that would bind them as allies. And despite the disbelief at it all, he felt more at ease than ever before. The senseless bloodshed had ended, and he and the Grandmaster had buried the bloody hatchet. It was a while yet until they could call each other a friend, but with how it all turned out, he knew it was a matter of time. Hey sensei, we're here, Takeda's voice said from behind him. Hanzo turned around to see Takeda and Katana, the latter now wearing the Shirai Ryu garb, only her colors regained the royal blue that she had become accustomed to. Her skin was slowly returning back to its natural color, and the orange cracks in her skin was barely noticeable, and her eyes were brown with just flecks of hellish orange within it. She was just 3 months away from being truly free from her curse. It didn't come without issues though. The first 2 months were contentious. Katana and Takeda couldn't stand one another. They tended to argue and fight every step of the way. Until Hanzo had finally had enough and brutally attacked them both until they had to work together to take him down. Which was no small task. But that rough instant did form a bond between the two former enemies, and soon, they became as close as siblings. But while her relationship with Takeda was better, the relationship between the two of them was odd to say. When the training had first began, she refused to call him anything but his codename, but as the year went on, she soon began to call him by his surname only, but there was a certain warmth that was there now than before. The two had grown a strong rapport, but while they weren't friends, there was something there between them. Something he couldn't explain. Regardless, he called the pair here for one reason. Thank you for heeding my call, Hanzo said. I will make this short and simple. Kuai Liang has requested an accord between our clans. Wow, I can't believe it, Takeda said with an odd tone. It is truly that surprising, Takeda? Katana questioned. He did reveal to Hasashi of Quan Kai's treachery against him and his clan. If he had done that to me, an accord would be the logical next step. That is true, and while I trust him, I do not wish to go alone just in case, Hanzo said with a cross of his arms. Now the reason I ask for you two is simple. Takeda, I wish for you to lead the clan in my absence. Katana, I wish for you to accompany me to this accord meeting. Very well. I would be very happy to accompany you, Hasashi, Katana said. I will watch over the clan with pride, Takeda said. Hanzo nodded and said, as you always do. He then looked to Katana and said, let us depart immediately. Katana nodded and the pair began their trek to the Linkue temple. 3 days later, Linkue Palace. Hasashi Hanzo. Welcome to the Linkue Palace, a sour-looking pale-skinned girl with spiky, frost-blue hair and eyes to match stated to the pair with narrowed eyes. She wore a padded blue sash that crossed from the right shoulder to the left hip, a dark blue t-shirt and baggy blue pants and black shoes. My name is Frost. I'll be showing you around until Master Liang is ready, Frost said as she turned around and began to walk. Hanzo and Katana glanced at each other before they followed the sour Lin Kuei into the palace. Throughout the palace, the pair noticed how empty the palace was. "This is highly bizarre," Katana said in a hushed tone to Hanzo. Hanzo nodded, but nothing triggered his fight response just yet. Frost stopped a large door and said with a dry tone, "Hanzo Hasashi. Welcome to the Lin Kuei." She then opened the door to reveal what looked like the entirety of the Lin Kuei in the snowing courtyard of the Lin Kuei Palace. All of them were in a bowed stance as a banner that held the Shirai Ryu crest, along with the Lin Kuei crest, hung on the statue of the founder of the Lin Kuei. And before the statue was Kuai Liang. "Welcome Hasashi Hanzo," the Lin Kuei members shouted. "Joy?" Frost said with a blank expression before she began to walk forward. "Wow, I wasn't expecting that," Katana said, and Hanzo nodded in agreement before the pair walked forward and walked into the courtyard where and through the path that the Lin Kuei members made, until they stood in front of the Lin Kuei's Grandmaster. "Grandmaster Hasashi," Kuai Liang said as he clasped forearms with Hanzo before he looked to Katana and said, "Katana, I am surprised to see you here, but joyed as well." "Thank you Grandmaster Liang," Katana said. "You have truly made us feel right at home," Hanzo said, taking the attention from Katana back onto himself. "I was expecting a lot of things, but not that welcome. I want to put our accord on the right foot. I figured this would be that step," Kuai Liang said with a smile. "You both have traveled a long way to come here, so I shall shelve any talk about the accords, and let you guys rest." "I do not see why I have to do this Sifu," Frost growled out. "That was an order Frost," Kuai Liang said frostily, which only caused her to ball up her fists, a mist of ice flowing from them. "Very well Sifu," she gritted out before she looked to Hanzo and Katana and said, "Just because Sifu Liang trusts you doesn't mean that I do. One wrong move and I won't hesitate in killing you both." "As if you have the means," Katana said with amusement. "Frost," Kuai Liang said, but Hanzo lifted up a hand. "Grandmaster Liang, I do not wish to impose, but may I handle this?" Hanzo asked. Kuai Liang eyed him for a moment and then nodded. "Frost, I understand your concern about this accord," Hanzo told the young cryomancer. "TCH, no you don't," Frost said. "I do," Hanzo said. "You think I wish to destroy the Lin Kuei? Well, I have been a target of the Lin Kuei up until Grandmaster Liang took control. As distrust as I am of the Lin Kuei, I fought with and against your Grandmaster and I trust in him." "You trust him?" Frost asked. "I do. You were there that day he revealed the Lin Kuei and Quan Kai's treachery. Albeit, frozen. That day told me that would lead your clan to a better future, and that is why I am here. I wish to see the bloodshed end as does he," Hanzo said. "He is your Sifu, correct? Do you trust him?" Frost paused then looked down to the ground. I. Frost scowled and looked at Hanzo with bitter eyes. "This isn't about me. This is about the Shirai Ryu. I know you are planning something to wipe us all out, and I won't let it happen." "This child is ludicrous," Katana said with a small laugh, but Hanzo lifted a hand to stop her. "If you truly believe then you know what must be done," Hanzo said. "Grandmaster," Kuai Liang said with a surprised tone. I challenge you Grandmaster Hasashi to mortal combat," Frost exclaimed. "And I accept," Hanzo said calmly. "Tomorrow. We will meet here for combat. Do not let me down." No problem," Frost said before she turned around and walked away. "Grandmaster Hasashi, do you think this is wise right before the accord signing?" Kuai Liang questioned, his voice slightly angered by what had just transpired. "I understand your concern Grandmaster Liang. However, this is not a means to kill her or to prove any sort of notion that the Shirai Ryu is stronger, if that is what you fear. No, your student obviously harbors some ill will towards my clan, and from the way she has acted, it shows she has no respect for the honor you have brought to your clan." Hanzo then turned around and said she actually reminds me a lot of myself. Both as a young Chujin and as Scorpion. My sensei said always told me to be trained, you must be tamed, and that is something I believe in. If we don't nip this in the bud now, I sense a lot of death from it. Hanzo then let a small smile appear on his face as he added, "Besides, consider this my debt to you for helping Takita's training during his time with the special forces." "Very well, I will allow this," Kuai Liang said with a nod. "But if it gets out of line, I will not hesitate to protect my students. I wouldn't expect less. Besides, we are long due for a spar," Hanzo replied, his smile changing into a challenging smirk. Liang didn't smirk, but there was a spark of challenge in his brown eyes that only made Hanzo's smirk widen. "You two will never change. Even in the time of peace," Katana said. "In the meantime, would you have someone lead us to our chambers, Grandmaster Liang?" Of course, Katana, Kuai Liang said with a nod. Thank you both for coming. Rest well, Katana and Grandmaster Hasashi, Kuai Liang said. The three shared a bow before the pair was led away. Mother, please. Hanzo opened his eyes and looked at the bedroom door behind him. Once the pair got to their room, Hanzo immediately gave Katana the bedroom, while he decided to stay in the living area of the room, but during his meditation, he heard her moans of pain. Hanzo unfolded his legs and stood up from the ground and walked towards the door, and opened it to see Katana tossing and turning in the middle of the king-size bed. Don't kill them. Mother, stop. She whispered with a tone of agony. Hanzo walked into the room and gingerly shook her away. Katana. Katana, wake up, Hanzo whispered. Katana gasped as she woke up, her right hand instantly lashing out, but Hanzo caught it. It's me, Hanzo said. Katana's wild eyes slowly focused until she whispered, Hasashi. Why are you? Your nightmares caught my attention during meditation, Hanzo answered. Hanzo knew that Katana suffered from nightmares. Nightmares of her demise at her mother's hands. Nightmares of all the death she had caused as Shao Kahn's assassin daughter and as Quan Kai's slave. It had always weighed on her conscience, but she never talked about it. Nightmares? Katana said. How agitating. I thought they would have stopped after so long. Despite knowing of these nightmares, Hanzo never pushed her to share them. But there's something about tonight that made him change his mind on this. Your nightmares follow you like a shadow because you fear what they are showing you, Hanzo told her. I don't fear my nightmares, Katana said. You don't? Then why do they still haunt you? Hanzo asked. Katana opened her mouth and then closed it with a glare. I used to suffer from nightmares as well, Hanzo admitted to her. Nightmares of my time under Quan Kai and nightmares about the deaths of my family and clan. Because I couldn't make peace with these nightmares at the time, the evil inside my heart clung to them, and soon took the form of my revealing self. When I was slain by Havoc, I confronted the source of nightmares and admitted the truth to myself. I defeated my inner demon and the nightmares stopped. I achieved peace from the nightmares that had plagued me for decades, and that was by facing them head-on. But you, instead of sticking it out and fighting them, you learn to run from what you see and feel from them, and that's why you have nightmares. To deny is to invite madness. To accept is to control. So you're telling me to face these nightmares head-on? Katana asked. But how? I don't think I can face my inner self like you did. Mine was a special case. I think it would be best to just to someone about them. It could be me, Takeda, or anyone else, but just talk to someone. Katana was silent for a long time until she looked at Hanzo and said, It's not easy trying to talk to someone, but are you able to lend me your ear until I'm ready? Hanzo smiled and replied, Of course. Flashback, Lin Kuei Palace. Katana Kanem. Standing in the middle of a large circular ring with a dragon etched on the surface, Hanzo stood across from the eager-looking Lin Kuei apprentice Frost, while Kuai Liang stood in between them, both arms in the air. Around the ring, the Lin Kuei members sat in anticipation for the match, while Katana's eyes were focused on Hanzo's relaxed form. Why was he so calm when he facing down an opponent? He should be taking this seriously. Grandmaster Hasashi, are you ready? The Lin Kuei Grandmaster asked. Hanzo nodded and uncrossed his arms and stepped into his Hapkido stance. If Hanzo took this fight seriously, he would have stepped into what he called his Hellfire stance, where each strike could kill, but why? She had been insolent enough to earn fighting his natural style, and yet he instead used the style that he often used with his students. Katana chuckled. She now understood, however she wondered what exactly would be teaching her on this day. Kuai Liang nodded as well before he looked to Frost and asked, Are you ready, Frost? Always ready, Frost said with a cocky tone as she adopted the standard Lin Kuei Shotokan-style stance. The first opponent to make the other fall 3 times is the winner. Fight. Kuai Liang said as he took a step back and lowered his hands. Frost smirked and iced the ground beneath her and skated her way towards Hanzo, before she leapt into the air to perform a flying kick, but Hanzo effortlessly stepped to the side to avoid it. Frost skidded against the ground, then aimed a backwards high kick at Hanzo's head, but he smacked it away. Frost slammed her foot to the ground, then pivoted her body to aim a punch at Hanzo's head, but Hanzo blocked the hand, only to lean his head back, when an ice kunai formed in the palm of her hand. So she's similar to Grandmaster Liang, Katana noted, as she watched Frost land a solid kick to his stomach, which caused the Shirai Ryu Grandmaster to stumble back, only to lean his head to the side to avoid a kick it aimed at his head. But to his surprise, an arching blade of ice appeared at the bottom of her shoe from toe to heel, making her tabi shoes look similar to ice skates. Hanzo ducked a kick before he leapt up and delivered a kick to Frost's chest, which sent her skidding backwards on the icy ground. As she skidded backwards, she formed an ice shuriken and began to launch them towards Hanzo at a quick pace. Hanzo summoned his Hellfire chain and swung the chain right, then left to destroy the shuriken, before he kicked the chain forward towards Frost, who created 2 ice kunai, and held it in front of her chest to block the chain from hitting her. Hanzo pulled the chain back into his hand and held the kunai, its blade glowing with the power of Hellfire. Hanzo placed his hands behind his back and nodded in approval before he said, "You're quick on your feet. I'm impressed. Did Grandmaster Liang work on your speed?" "My speed is my own attribute," Frost replied cockily. "As is the cryomancy you wield, correct?" Hanzo asked. "Yeah," Frost replied with a wide smirk. "And with my speed and my skills in cryomancy, your ass is going to be impaled by my icy dick." Hanzo stepped back into his Hapkido stance and said, "Let's continue." Frost let a savage smirk appear on her face before she opened her right palm and iced the area in front of her, as she skated on top of it at top speed until she got close to Hanzo, then suddenly iced the area to her left and skidded as she launched several ice shuriken towards Hanzo. Using his Hellfire kunai, Hanzo slashed at the first 2 shuriken before extending his chain to swing it in front of him to block the remaining shuriken, but as he did this, Frost leapt into the air with a yell, and iced Hanzo in both hands. Hanzo quickly pulled back his chain and wrapped it around his arm, and lifted his right arm up to block the dull slash of Frost's ice blades, before he shoved her backwards into the air, and launched his Hellfire chain towards her, with a shout of "Come here." Katana saw the brief panic on Frost's face before she created 2 ice kunai, and launched it at the chain to slow his speed down, before creating another ice tanto, and slicing the chain. Hanzo pulled the chain back where it dispersed into flames, as Frost landed on the ground and tossed 2 ice shuriken at him, then skated towards him. Hanzo swayed to the left, and then the right to avoid the 2 shuriken, before he fully sidestepped to avoid Frost's flying kick, and when she landed, she turned around to deliver a roundhouse kick, but Hanzo ducked it, then stepped to the side to avoid the axe kick. Katana crossed her arms and watched as Hanzo effortlessly avoided each attack Frost tried to land, and could easily see the frustration building on the young cryomancer's face. "Stop moving and fight me," Frost suddenly shouted as she threw a right hook, but Hanzo merely caught it. "Do you want to know why you can't hit me?" Hanzo asked as he pulled Frost forward and delivered a brutal knee to her stomach, knocking the air out of her. Frost hunched forward as she fell to her knees and held her stomach as Hanzo stood above her. "You let your emotions blind you," Hanzo answered. Frost scowled and threw her right hand out, and launched a small ball of ice at Hanzo's eyes, but he used his Hellfire kunai to slice through the small orb, and then dashed backwards to avoid Frost's sweep. "My emotions," Frost yelled as she ran forward and began to throw out jab after jab, but Hanzo continued to effortlessly avoid each strike, before landing a hard right hand slap to her face, sending Frost to the ground. Frost leapt to her feet and screamed as she threw several ice kunai at Hanzo, but her katana could see that the throws were sloppier than before, due to the rage on Frost's face. Hanzo easily cut through each kunai before Frost dashed forward on ice and threw a right hook at Hanzo, but he leaned backward and kicked her in the stomach, which caused her to skid backwards, before he ran forward and kneed her in the face, sending her to the ground. "In the span of 2 minutes, you've been sent to the ground twice. One more and you will lose this battle," Hanzo told her as he placed his hands behind his back. "You're letting your anger cloud your mind." "My anger is what gives me power," Frost shouted. "Anger is what hinders it," Hanzo replied calmly. "What the hell do you know?" Frost screamed as she ran towards Hanzo and began to aim jabs at his head, but Hanzo merely stepped backwards to avoid each quick strike. "I know enough," Hanzo replied before he ducked a left hook and walked behind Frost, and pushed the back of her head, causing her to stumble forward before she turned her head in alarm. Rage is admittedly a powerful tool, but power without control is meaningless. "You want to take me down? Then you need to focus instead of blindly striking." "Focus? I'm trying to take you out and yet you're trying to teach me," Frost yelled. "She's smarter than she looks," Katana noted with a chuckle. "I don't need teaching. I need power," Frost yelled as particles of ice began to swirl around her in a circular motion. The swirling ice began to thicken as Frost held both hands out, a ball of ice struggling to take shape in her palms. "If you don't need teaching, then why are you in the Lin Kuei?" Hanzo questioned. Frost gritted her teeth angrily, wisps of icy energy flowing from her now pale blue eyes, the ice ball in her palms now growing. "I hate the Shirai Ryu," she growled out as she spread her arms out more as the ice ball grew larger. "Master Liang is strong enough to wipe all of you off the planet, and yet, he allies with you instead." Hanzo stood there with a calm expression on his face, but Katana noticed that embers were slowly rising around him. So if you won't do it, then I will so take this seriously so I can kill you. Frost screamed out as she launched a fairly large orb of ice towards Hanzo. Katana heard the gasps coming from the Lin Kuei members around her, but she knew that Hanzo wouldn't be killed by this upstart of all people, so she decided to just watch on and see what he would do. Just as the orb was about to collide, a swirling tornado of hellfire erupted from the spot Hanzo stood in and rose to the sky, causing the ice orb to immediately evaporate from the intense heat of the Netherum's flames. The first thing that hit Katana was the bloodlust. It seemed to permeate the area around them, and it was flowing from the hellfire tornado. The flames then died down to reveal the shinobi that she had fought alongside and against. The Hellfire Wraith, Scorpion. Scorpion wore a pair of black gauntlets on each arm, baggy black pants with black greaves on each leg. He had a golden armored sash that crossed against his clothed chest, and connected to the golden sash that hung down to his thighs, and a black belt with a skull in the middle of the belt. On his back were sheathed katana and wakizashi, and he wore a black hood that hung slightly over his eyes, and a golden mask over the bottom half of his face, that held the motif of a scorpion on it, and his eyes were glowing white. Wrapped loosely round his left arm was the majority of his hellfire chain, while the end of the chain was in his right hand, the glowing kunai dangling a few feet from the ground. "You want to kill me, frozen brat?" Scorpion hissed out angrily, the flames around him flaring to life, while Frost looked up at him with both anger and fear in her eyes. It had been ages since Katana had seen his scorpion form, but she still felt a rush of both fear and excitement from his echoing voice and barely controlled rage. Katana watched as Frost panted heavily as she looked at the being before her and shouted, "Heh, so you're taking me seriously now?" "Oh child," Katana murmured with a shake of her head. Frost held her arms in front of her as ice began to form around her once again, an orb of ice starting to materialize in her palms. "If that one was enough to make you take this seriously, then I bet this one will end today." Without warning, Scorpion's form exploded into hellfire, and Katana watched as a stream flame shot towards Frost, until it exploded into Scorpion's form in front of her. While Frost was interrupted as Scorpion's fist slammed through the frozen orb, slid against her palms and arms, before his fist collided with her chest, sending her sailing backwards through a group of Lin Kuei, before she crashed into a wall. "Grandmaster Hasashi!" Kuei Liang exclaimed in shock, but Katana placed a hand on his shoulder. "Relax, Grandmaster Katana. He knows what he is doing." Kuei Liang frowned but nodded. Scorpion's skeleton began to glow through his skin before a burst of hellfire exploded from his form, and when it faded away, Hanzo had returned. The Grandmaster walked until he slowed to a stop before Frost's battered body. Frost growled and attempted and held up her right hand to form an ice kunai to continue the battle, but her arm slumped back down to the ground. "You win." Frost whimpered out angrily, but Katana realized the anger was probably more at herself than at Hanzo. Hanzo stood silently for a moment before he asked, "Who did the Shirai Ryu kill that was close to you?" How Frost began. "Did I know? Your hatred of the Shirai Ryu is far more personal than a rivalry between our clans," Hanzo replied, interrupting her. "So tell me, who was it that we killed?" Frost stared at him, the hate in her eyes glowing, before she shut them, and looked away for a moment, before she lowered her head, and said, "It wasn't your entire clan. It was you. You took away my brother." Katana watched as a flash of realization appeared on Hanzo's face, before it quickly changed into a look of understanding. "I see. I thought you looked familiar," Hanzo said after a moment. "Your brother was an honorable man fighting with the special forces to stop the invasion. Had we met under different circumstances, I wouldn't have killed him on that helicopter that day. But you did. And you did it without a second thought," Frost yelled. "You took away the best thing in my life. So I won't stop until I kill every last one of you. Starting with his killer." Frost hissed out hatefully as she glared up at him. "You're right," Hanzo said. "And I take full responsibility for it. You are owed your vengeance. However, you are nowhere near strong enough." Frost began before she grew quiet. "Your Grandmaster was able to fight me and defeat me in one of the few times we have battled. A punch like that wouldn't have fazed him," Hanzo said. Frost glowered, but then she lowered her head as Hanzo continued with, "You have the skill to become a fearsome warrior, but your overconfidence and your anger is what hinders you. If you want to kill me, then learn from him, listen to him and tempering your overconfidence and rage. Once you do that, we will fight once more, and I am sure you will be strong enough to take my life. You two are allies. What makes you think you'll train me to be your killer?" Frost asked rather hesitantly, which surprised Katana. "Grandmaster Liang is a good man that has brought honor to his clan. He will do you justice in training you to kill me," Hanzo said. He's the only one strong enough to do so. I do not know his methods of training, but trust in him. Unlike me, I can see that he does care about what happens to you." And with those words, Hanzo turned around and walked away, but then Frost shouted, "Wait." Hanzo paused, then looked over his shoulder at her. She held up a hand and balled it into a fist, determination and hate glowing in her icy blue eyes. "When I grow enough to face you down with Sifu's training, I'll take your life. I promise you that. I look forward to that day then. Until then, grow strong, Frost," Hanzo replied before he turned around and walked towards Kuai Liang and Katana, and said, "Now, let us sign those accords." After the fight between Hanzo and Frost, the accord signing went smoothly, but during the celebrating dinner, Katana was deep in thought. This man she had known as both ally and foe for so many years, continued to surprise her. He could have humiliated Frost, and therefore Sub-Zero and the Lin Kuei by proxy. He could have killed the girl, and yet, he went out of his way to teach her and guide her hatred on him, while building that bridge between master and student. She had no idea that Hanzo had it in him, and yet, she found her feelings for him shift yet again. She had experienced these shifts in feelings before. Back from the very first night in Earthrealm to now, Hanzo would say or do something that would make Katana feel strange. But it was a familiar type of strange, but that was what made her confused. The last person she had this strange feeling for was him. And after that ended terribly, she swore it would never happen again, and yet, all throughout dinner, she found herself staring at the Grandmaster of the Shirai Ryu. By the time the two got to their room, Katana's stomach was in knots. She couldn't have gained those odd feelings again. She had to fight against them. And yet, "Hasashi, I'm proud of you," Katana said. Damn it. She wasn't trying to say that. I mean for how you handled Frost today. Guiding her hatred in order to make her focus and respect Kuai Liang, Katana continued with a faint reddening of her cheeks. "Her and Takeda are alike in that way," Hanzo said with a chuckle as he kept his back turned from the semi-corrupted princess. "When I first met him, he hated his father for abandoning his mother to her future death. I had to make him hate me to get him to focus. Now he idolizes you like a father figure." "What a turnaround, honestly," Katana noted with a chuckle. "I'm curious. Why didn't you try that with me? I held a lot of hatred the first few months of my arrival, but you never tried to direct that hatred to yourself. Why?" She watched as Hanzo paused briefly before he said, "Well, Takeda and Frost are similar, you and I are similar as well. Two souls twisted by Netherem evil. Imprisoned by our own bitterness. I couldn't allow anyone to continue down that road. When you appeared that day, you weren't the Katana that Scorpion had partnered with. There was something different about you compared to before." "Different?" Katana asked softly. "How?" Hanzo nodded and sat beside Katana and said, "I saw something in your eyes that day. Despite them being familiar ravine and glowing orange, I could see your true feelings within them. You wanted to change and become better than what you were. I couldn't do that if you hated me. I needed you to trust me. That's why you walked out into the Taki no Shokin," Katana said with realization. "The best way to begin any sort of a relationship is with trust," Hanzo said. Katana let a grin appear on her face as she said, "You better be careful, Hasashi, some might accuse you of having a soft spot for me." For a split second, Katana saw a look of realization appear on Hanzo's face, and it was then her own heart began to beat quickly. Did Hanzo have a soft spot for her? "Hanzo?" Katana whispered as she placed her hand on top of his. "Do you have a soft spot for me?" Hanzo began before he grew silent. She watched as his face changed from hesitant to thoughtful. "I am not sure," Hanzo admitted before he asked, "What do you wish I would say?" "I don't know," Katana said, suddenly feeling very bashful. "I just don't know how to feel about you. You're not my teacher, far from it. We're not friends like Takeda and I, but I feel strange around you. Like I'm drawn to you. I see we are on the same page when it comes to one another," Hanzo told her. "Really?" Katana asked with surprise, trying to keep the surprising amount of hope she had from her voice. "Yes," Hanzo confirmed. "Before we left the Fire Garden, I thought about this." "So what do we do about this oddness?" Katana questioned. "I don't know," Hanzo admitted. "Admittedly, I have entertained the thought about a new union, but I feel that I am betraying the memory of my wife and child if I ever become betrothed to another. It is foolish, I know." "That's not foolish," Katana said softly. "It's noble that you feel that way, Hasashi. I'm sorry that I brought it up." "Don't be. I mean it," Hanzo replied with a faint smile. "However, talking to you has made me realize that perhaps I do have a soft spot for you." The two grew quiet before Katana said, "Thank you for being honest with me." You never have to thank me for something like that, Hanzo said before he rose up from the bed and began to walk away. Just as he reached the door, Katana suddenly shouted, "Wait." Hanzo paused and turned to look at her with a curious expression, but he remained silent for her, something she appreciated. You know, Katana began after a moment of silence. My mind and heart was in turmoil back then. I had just left the NarutoxHarem, my home for years. I left my relationship with Liu Kang behind as well. I was alone when I appeared before you. I would have despised you if you made me hate you, and yet, you didn't. Katana took a breath as she looked him in the eyes and said, "The night you tested me, you were so kind to me when I needed it the most. You gave me a chance despite never earning one for all that I had done with no hesitation. For an entire year, you were firm with me, but still remained kind and patient as I fought through this curse. And even after all this time, you are still the kind and patient man that I reunited with so long ago. I trust you, Hanzo. I trust you with a lot." With that admittance, Katana felt a shift in her heart for the man that stood across from her. She had admitted that she had trusted him. For an outworlder to admit trust in another, it meant far more than any valuable item in the entire realms. She watched as Hanzo processed these words before a smile appeared on his face. She had seen him smile twice during her year at the Shirai Ryu, but this was the first time his smile was directed at her. It showed her how handsome the normally serious man was. "I am more than honored to have earned your trust, and I hope I can keep it," Hanzo told her softly. The two shared a tender look before Hanzo bowed his head and murmured, "Good night, Katana." "Good night, Hanzo," Katana replied before Hanzo nodded and walked out of the room. Katana placed a hand to her heart and let out a faint laugh. Wow. Then flashback. Konohagakure no Sato, Hot Springs. Hyuga Hinata. All both Ino and Sakura said in unison, while a blushing Hinata looked away from everyone. "So that was the moment you began to fall for him?" Sakura asked. "Yes. That was the moment I realized that I fell in love with him," Hinata replied. "After that moment, our bond became closer until the NarutoxHarem's plan fell into action. We slept with one another after a brutal battle, and then died to the hands of a ravine train in Kano." "Ugh," Kano Teiwei replied with a roll of her eyes. "Still, it's kind of a sweet story, barring the somewhat sadness of it," Sakura said. It truly is," a new voice said. The girls looked up to see a blonde girl with long twin tails and whisker marks on her cheek, a warm smile on her face. Konohagakure no Sato, Hot Springs. Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto. Sakura and Ino screamed in unison as they quickly covered themselves up, but Sakura was blushing heavily. "Whoa, you cute as a chick, whiskers," Teiwaya said with an appreciative raised eyebrow. "Why thank you," Naruto replied. "Sorry for interrupting, but can I speak to Hinata-chan alone?" "Sure, we're gone," Ino said as she grabbed Teiwaya and Sakura's forearms and began to rise out of the water. "Let's leave these two alone." "Oi, Sakura-chan," Naruto said. Sakura looked at him curiously. "Yes, Naruto-kun?" she asked. "Tomorrow, Ichikaris. Can you meet me there?" Naruto asked. "Of course I can, Naruto-kun," Sakura said with a smile. "I'll see you tomorrow." "Come on, let's go," Ino said as she tugged the pair out of the water, and soon, Naruto and Hinata was alone. "I nearly forgot how precious you look in that form, Naruto-kun," Hinata said with a faint blush, as Naruto stepped into the water and sunk into it with a relieved sigh. "Thank you. This form is wonderful, especially since it allows me to get into places I normally can't get into. It's been ages since I've soaked in this," Naruto said with a happy sigh. "So, what are you doing here?" Hinata asked. Naruto opened his eyes to glance at her as his conversation with Haku floated into his mind. Flashback. Konohagakure no Sato Hokage Monument. Uzumaki Naruto. "So after that night, I started to feel more for her than I did before." Naruto finished with a small smile at the memory of it. "That's admittedly cute," Haku said with a chuckle. "I can see why Katana fell in love with Hanzo. Someone that went through so much, trust would be a huge thing to give away." "Yeah," Naruto replied. The pair was silent for a moment before Haku said, "I want you to be with her." Naruto's eyes widened in shock as he turned to the Hyoten user. "What?" Naruto stammered out. "I want you to be with her," Haku repeated. "Before you jump to conclusions, I'm not giving you up. You're my love, however, hearing what she had gone through before you reunited with her, makes me feel that she deserves a happy ending as well." "Haku," Naruto said softly. Haku smiled and said, "Don't get me wrong, she will always be my rival, but life is too short to deny anyone happiness. Besides, I did tell Sakura-chan to admit her feelings to you, why not be fair?" Hold up. Sakura-chan. Naruto exclaimed in shock. Oh, did I let that slip? Haku asked with a slight tone. Yes, she shares the feelings that Hinata and I do for you as well. By the elder gods. Naruto breathed out. But you don't have to do this. I am willing to give myself to you and you alone. You saved me. Then you saved me, Haku replied as she placed a hand on Naruto's cheek. But I know you care about Hinata-chan due to your past as Hanzo, and that you care about Sakura-chan due to your past crush as Naruto. So I'm not asking you, I'm telling you to go for it, Haku said. You're not betraying me by any means, so don't let that thought go into your head. The four of us will need to talk eventually about how this will work, but I want you to be as happy as you made me. I don't deserve you, Naruto whispered. For all that you have suffered in both lives, you deserve everything and more, Haku replied before they shared a soft and loving kiss. Konohagakure no Sado, Hot Springs. Uzumaki Naruto. After our talk, Haku and I talked about a few things, Naruto said. About our past. I see. Hinata replied faintly. Despite your rivalry with Haku-chan, she wants me to be with you as well as her and Sakura-chan, Naruto said. What? Hinata stammered out. Yeah, she feels that I deserve the world due to both my past life and this one, Naruto said. So she wants to share you? Hinata asked. That's not out of the ordinary for the shinobi world. The Sandaime himself had 2 wives. Naruto nodded and replied, yeah, I know. I've seen pictures of them. One of them died during the Kyuubi attack, and the other is still kicking. She's pretty nice, but we're going off topic. You're right. Perhaps I'm staving off the inevitable rejection again, Hinata said as she looked away from him. Naruto eyed the girl for a moment before he walked towards her and placed a hand beneath her chin. Slowly, he lifted her head up so she was looking at him, and in the moment, he could see how hurt and nervous she was in her eyes. I know all about Katana Kanem. I know her favorite foods. I know her past with her mother and sister. I even know intimate details about her body, Naruto said. Hinata blushed at those words, which made Naruto grin, before he added, but all I know about Hyuga Hinata is that she was the cute pearl-eyed girl in my class, and that she had a crush on me. Our past together will always be there, but I want to know more about who you are now. So, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it right. Hyuga Hinata, would you like to go on a date with me? Naruto asked her with a smile. More than anything. Hinata gasped out with a happy smile on her face before she blinked and let out a faint laugh, the blush on her face deepening. Then, let's not waste any time, Naruto said with a smile. Village of Hisako Hospital. Kitsueki Tenten. You worry too much, Lee, Tenten said with a weak smile on her face, as she walked through the streets of Hisako with a concerned Rock Lee. I can go round town alone. No worries, okay. Go train. Lee crossed his arms with a frown as he replied with I just don't want anything more to happen to you. You already suffered enough with Neji, and I feel terrible leaving him in his hotel room. We suffered. You died, Lee, Tenten argued softly. And had it not been for that whole Kung Lao thing, you would still be dead. I may be without an arm, but at least I had my life. Fair point, Lee replied with a weak grin. Are you sure? Will you go? I know you want to hone your skills with Amoy and Gai-sensei, so go, Tenten replied. Lee still looked unsure, but he nodded and dashed off, leaving Tenten alone. Tenten watched him leave before the flimsy smile gave way to bitter scowl, before slammed her fist against a brick wall beside her, leaving an indent from the blow. Tenten lowered her head as tears began to flow from her eyes. Why hadn't she been the one to die instead of Lee? Was she not worthy enough to die and gain the power Lee had? It wasn't fair that she was losing her career while Lee came out stronger than before. She knew that she shouldn't be jealous, but she couldn't stop herself from letting the anger flow. She would do anything to get her arm back and continue her career. Are you alright, child? Tenten turned her head to see an old woman with gray hair sitting in the middle of an alleyway, sitting in a booth. The Nitharum. Tomas Smoke Rabata. You called for me, Lord Kang. Smoke asked as he knelt before the throne of the Emperor and his Empress, Sindel Khanum. I have, the Nitharum Emperor said with frown on his face. After decades, Blade and both Briggs were able to get a beat on Earthrealm. Because of your skills, I will be sending you to investigate. Just me. No one else. Smoke asked. Because of how weak the signal for Earthrealm is, we are only able to create a portal for one person, and your skills at infiltration are sufficient enough to go alone, Empress Sindel replied. You will head to Earthrealm, find what has blocked our ability to see it, and then tear it down. Once we do, you will return here. Understood, Lady Khanum, Smoke said with a bowed head. When shall I leave? An hour from now, Emperor Kang replied. I shall leave once I've prepared, Smoke stated. Good, now leave us, Sindel said with a wave of her hand. Smoke nodded and stood up before he walked out of the throne room. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.